They reported me for camping, but I was housing evacuees fleeing the storm. What would you do if your act of kindness was twisted into a crime? In the heart of Willow Creek, as Hurricane Lila's winds howled and floodwaters swallowed homes, I opened my community center to strangers fleeing the storm. They called it a haven. She called it a violation. Her name was Karen, and she was determined to shut us down. The storm hit on a Tuesday, relentless and unforgiving. By dawn, half the town was underwater. Families arrived at my doorstep, mothers clutching babies, elders shivering in soaked clothes, kids with nothing but the toys in their hands. My center, a modest brick building usually hosting yoga classes and book clubs, became a makeshift shelter. We had cots, canned food, and a generator humming through the night. I didn't think twice about helping. It was what neighbors did. But Karen, who lived across the street in her pristine colonial with its manicured lawn, saw something else entirely. To her, we weren't evacuees seeking refuge, we were campers breaking zoning laws, tarnishing her perfect neighborhood. Karen stormed over that first morning, her umbrella snapping in the wind. "This is illegal," she shouted, jabbing a finger at the families huddled inside. "You can't just let people squat here." I tried to explain people were homeless, terrified, with nowhere else to go. But her eyes gleamed with righteous fury. She didn't see survivors. She saw a threat to property values. By noon, she'd called the city, reporting me for unauthorized camping and sanitation violations. The nerve of it stung. Here we were, passing out blankets, while she weaponized bureaucracy against us. The truth unfolded over the next 2 days, and it wasn't pretty. Karen wasn't just a complainer. She was relentless. She posted on the neighborhood app, rallying others to her cause, painting me as some reckless vigilante. "This shelter is a health hazard," she wrote, attaching photos of muddy boots outside the center. She conveniently ignored the families inside, the ones who'd lost everything to the flood. I learned she'd been hounding the city for years about minor infractions, untidy hedges, kids skateboarding, even a lemonade stand. But this was different. This was cruelty dressed up as civic duty. Then came the twist. Old Man Jenkins, the quiet widower next door, stepped in. He'd been watching from his porch, silent as always, but he'd had enough. Jenkins, it turned out, was a retired city planner who knew the zoning laws backward and forward. He shuffled over with a stack of yellow documents, proving my center was zoned for emergency use. "Karen's got no case," he rasped, his voice steady despite the rain. He'd seen her kind before, people who'd rather tear down than build up. His unexpected alliance gave us a fighting chance, and the volunteers rallied, their spirits lifted by his quiet courage. The confrontation peaked on the third night, as the storm's remnants battered Willow Creek. Karen showed up with a city inspector in tow, a nervous man clutching a clipboard. She'd escalated her crusade, accusing us of endangering lives. The center was chaos. Volunteers scrambled to distribute food, kids cried, and the generator flickered. Karen stood in the doorway, megaphone in hand, shouting about filth and trespassers. Her words cut deeper than the wind. I faced her, heart pounding, and asked why she'd rather see families on the street than safe inside. She faltered, but only for a moment before doubling down. "Rules are rules," she snapped. Then she crossed a line. In her zeal, Karen grabbed a box of donated supplies, blankets, diapers, canned soup, and dumped it onto the muddy lawn, claiming it was evidence of our mess. The crowd gasped. A young mother, Maria, who'd been feeding her toddler, lunged forward, tears streaming. "Those are ours," she cried. The volunteers formed a human chain, shielding the supplies as Karen screamed about lawsuits. The inspector, visibly shaken, scribbled notes but said little. Her actions weren't just petty, they were a storm of their own, tearing at the fragile hope we'd built. Jenkins stepped forward, his frail frame steady, and quoted the city code verbatim. The inspector nodded, his face grim. Karen's accusations were unraveling. Karen's downfall came swiftly. The inspector's report, filed the next morning, cleared the center. Jenkins' documents held up, and the city praised our efforts, even sending more supplies. Word of Karen's stunt spread like wildfire. The neighborhood app turned against her, posts flooded in, sharing stories of her past bullying. Maria, the young mother, posted a photo of her toddler wrapped in a salvaged blanket, captioning it, "This is what Karen tried to take." The community rallied, dropping off food, clothes, and even toys for the kids. Karen's colonial, once a symbol of her control, stood silent, her curtains drawn. She'd overplayed her hand, and the storm she'd stirred swallowed her reputation whole. By week's end, the center was thriving. Families found temporary homes, and volunteers kept coming. Jenkins became our unofficial historian, documenting the storm's toll and our small victories. I stood outside one evening, watching the last clouds part, and felt a quiet pride. We hadn't just survived Lila, we'd survived Karen, too. Her crusade to shut us down had backfired, exposing her as the true disruptor. Kindness, it turned out, was louder than her megaphone. What do you think? Can one person's selfishness outweigh a community's strength? Share your thoughts on where the line between right and wrong lies in a crisis like this.